like everyone was frozen. And my dad looked at me like, hey, get on the stage, next play, like, like direct traffic, like let people know. I'm like, hey, everybody calm down. Like, this is what happens at protests, like get somewhere safe. And then next thing you know, like the police are coming around, flanking from the side with the ambulance. Like I'm communicating with the police chief via the microphone, like, hey, get the ambulance in here, somebody's shot.
Welcome to the Untapped Potential Podcast, where we interview visionaries from the Pacific Northwest. Today, we're interviewing Marshall Hugh, the frontman for Martial Law Band, a Seattle-based music group.
Marshall grew up in Mill Creek, Washington, and decided to drop out of an Ivy League school to pursue his passion in music.
In this episode, we talk about creating an album from his experience during the 2020 Seattle protests, being nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and how a spiritual journey inspired him to create a local music event called Fremont Fridays. Welcome to the Untapped Potential Podcast. Today we're tapping in with Marshall Hugh. Welcome, Marshall.
What's poppin', my brothers? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming through, man. And it wasn't too far of a walk for you, right?
It was easy. I was already at my homie Jay Smooth's house. That's one of my bros that's been supporting my music for so long. And now that I'm so busy, anytime like I got free days, I always hit like my good homies like, bro, I remember you. We are friends. What are you doing? So yeah, I was just kicking it over his spot. And then when I finally looked at y'all address, it was like a mile and a half down. I just strolled, man.
Really local, man. Really organic out here.
That's what we look for, man. Just telling around the area,
Yeah, they know about the kid, man. I've been posted up in this 50-mile radius for a good grip now.
Hell yeah,
man. So we want to know more about Marshall Hugh, man. Grew up in Mill Creek, Washington.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I mean, I was always one of those. My dad's from South Central LA. And so he moved up over here. He went to college in Portland at Lewis and Clark. That's where he met my mom, who's from Tucson. And then they moved up here together. And so one of the main, I feel like the biggest thing my dad was like, is like, yo, you're going to look at this whole greater Seattle area as your neighborhood. And so I played sports. The first thing he did, I remember being 4 years old. It's I went down to Seattle, right to the Boys and Girls Club on Jackson. They're like, yo, you're gonna play here. This is where you're gonna play. So growing up in Mill Creek was cool, I just played a lot of sports. And I feel like, especially when you're in those type of environments, if you can be athletic, if you're lucky enough to be smart and have a support system at home, I was a popular kid, 8th grade ASB president, was captain of the sports teams, had a lot of friends, and I'm blessed. I feel like I had a very blessed upbringing to where my parents just encouraged me to be myself, encouraged me to view both sides of I'm half black, half white. And from the jump, they're like, you're half black, you're half white. You're not white, you're not only black. You are you. You are standing in the gap as a biracial person, and embrace yourself and love yourself. And if you want to do sports, you can do sports. If you want to be in politics, you can be in politics. My sisters are 5 and 6 years older than me. They're super smart. They were the scholars of the family. When I dropped out of school, everybody was like, dog, what are you doing? We already got this figured out for you. We already got the blueprint. So I've always been the black sheep of the family, but one that I'm the baby, so everybody's just like, oh, there's Marshall being Marshall. And yeah, man, it was great. I got a lot of my best friends to this day are people that I grew up with in Mill Creek, like my boy Hugh, who I shout out in this song Cleos. I'm like, Hugh, just wait till I hit this opera. Hugh, like Marsh, just wait till I'm a doctor. Big as our nostrils type vibes, And man, that's my best bro since 6th grade. He put me on Tupac deep dives, and he ended up being a doctor. And I watched him do that his whole life, be kicking it with us on the weekends, teaching me how to roll up type vibes. And then next thing you know, dude's really what he always said he'd be. And those are just the people I was lucky enough to be surrounded with and chose to be surrounded with. A lot of go-getters.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, man. It sounds like you grew up in a household that really fostered self-love, self-acceptance, and really had those conversations at a young age, man. And you also surrounded yourself with a good friend group. Man, what was it like, playing sports? You said sports were huge for you. What's a moment that stands out in sports?
Oh, well, since you got to bring it up, we lost in the state championship my senior year of basketball. But honestly, that's the best thing in my life to ever happen to me. Because obviously you have this beautiful run to the state championship, winning all these amazing games. We beat Federal Way, Federal Way was ranked like 20th in the nation. And I remember I had my boy Brett Kingma. If you know Seattle hoops, you know Brett Kingma's like white boy, filthiest shooter of all time. I'm not kidding. Boy really was pulling up. He was like Jimmer Fredette before Jimmer Fredette. I swear, like
that guy.
He was really chucking from half court, and like it would go in. It was crazy. So. Yeah, we beat Federal Way, and I remember we were at the Tacoma Dome. We were at warm-ups, and we were just looking at these guys like, hey, low-key, we're better than them, you know? We could go and beat these guys, and they were 20th in the nation, beat them. And I remember just the crowd going crazy. And then the next day, we played in the state championship, and we ended up playing. There was like this big dude, Josh Smith, man. He was like 6'10". He was like Shaq. I swear he dunked it, the basket lifted up. I'm like, oh, it's going to be a tough one. And I mean, he ended up, his teammates stepped up that game too, man. And losing that game was the catalyst for my music career, was the catalyst for my passions, because I thought to myself, I never want to go into an experience and not be the reason why we won or we lost. I want to be the person that dictates the energy in these big moments. And I don't want to feel like the lights are too bright, or, oh, if I only would have done this, or if I only would have done that. So now when I get these opportunities like TED Talks or BBC World Service, like I'm so locked in, and I know I'm going in there to just explode
for sure,
and go and leave my imprint and leave it all on the court. And so, yeah, that was probably the biggest moment of my sports career and stuff. It was really cool. When I went to school at Carnegie Mellon, I played basketball and football. First person to ever do that at that school. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, I've been coaching basketball now and personal training. I had a chance to be a practice player for the Seattle Storm, and that was awesome. Stewie elbowed me a couple times, you know, Sue crossed me a couple times. Jewel Lloyd I can't guard her, but it was a great learning experience. Taught me how to be like championship minded,
right?
You know, being around those women and their professionalism and intensity. And I mean, mentally, they think the game so much further ahead than I did. Right. And I'm a smart player. So yeah, that was a really big learning experience as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And so sports and music have always had a big influence in your life, but what did a young Marshall want to do? When did you realize, you know what, I'm going all in on music?
Well, I always knew I just wanted to like be an orator, be someone that spoke. You know, like I mentioned, I was ASB president and stuff. Anytime there was like, okay, there needs to be a class speech, it was a done data. They knew, okay, Marshall, you're finna go up there, you know? And so I knew I wanted to be somebody who impacted the world with my voice. I was thinking, okay, I know sports is going to be able to give me a platform. And then when I went to school, I was thinking like, because I would just be freestyling at lunch. I never really took music that seriously. A lot of my friends from O'Day and stuff did, but I was just a freestyle guy, you know? Then when I went to school, like sports was going well, but the energy wasn't there. You go to high school, everybody cares. Like you're the man walking around doing your thing. I'll go, Carnegie Mellon's like a real smart school, you know? I'll score 20 points, go off, and then I'm walking around normal, you know? Dudes nobody even knows, nobody even cares. And I just started freestyling at parties. And then like I started getting that buzz, that energy that I used to get from sports, from freestyling at the parties. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking this. After that moment, it was over. I should have just dropped out right then and right there, because I was in front row of class, taking notes, but I wasn't taking notes. I was writing rhymes. Oh, and that moment right there was like, because I was in school studying history and public policy. So I was going to try to be like a politician. And then honestly, this is the wildest stuff, y'all. I dropped out. I got an internship at Cube 93. I knew as soon as I got that internship, I'm like, it's over. I'm about to start a grassroots movement that changes the world. And that's what I said. And I just dropped out and just went and tried to do it.
Let's go.
And that right there is so wild, because at the time I was rapping like 2 Chainz or Lil Wayne. Like it was just party raps, you know? Sure. I didn't really have my own voice. So it was funny for me to have this vision of like, I'm going to try to change the world with my music. but be rapping on some dumb stuff. Not necessarily dumb stuff, but, you know, party raps, fun, you know, just something that's not what I stand on now. Now I've found my voice. I know what to do. I intentionally like don't curse, you know, I intentionally put a positive message into my music. I'll talk about dark stuff. I'll talk about the death and stuff that I've witnessed, but I'm putting a positive spin on it so that it uplifts people. And now I've finally found like my voice to match that vision that I had when I decided like, oh, this is what it is. Like,
so you had an interest in music while you were at college, and so how did that interest turn into meeting these musicians and forming a band together?
Hey, this is wild. All right. So I came back, right? And I went like the first month or so. I didn't really tell my parents, like, hey, I'm not going back. But in my head, I know, like, I'm not going back. And because I was thinking I was just gonna like go to Summer Jam, meet J. Cole, tell him I rap, like slide him the Instagram, and then it was it's a done data. Like I'm on from there. I know I got the juice. It didn't end up going like that. So when it was time to go back to school, like I told like my parents, like, hey, I'm about to go be a rapper. I'm not going back to school. And they like my pops was always like, all right, if you're gonna do it, do it. My mom was like, what are you doing? My sister's like, this band is tripping. And they basically said like, okay, you can do that. Like you can make a grown man decision, but you can't do that here. So like, you got to go live somewhere else.
Damn.
You know?
So from that day forward, they kicked you out,
They kicked me out the crib, bro, for being a rapper, man. Damn. But that being said, so like who I was talking about before, he was one of the main people that just was like, bro, do it. Like, don't even trip. Like, I got you. So he got me a job at Little Kickers Magnuson. Never coached soccer in my life. Never played soccer. And so I was just a soccer coach. I was coaching babies, 18-month-old babies all the way up to like 9 years old.
Wow.
Coaching soccer classes. Right. And he's Indian and like brown families, you know, they always want you to like, some of them want you to like stay in the house for as long as possible. And I was telling him like, bro, it's your senior year of college. Like you can't be in the crib no more, bro. You got to go experience it. So he's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So we got an apartment, moved out to Greek Row, 18th and 45th, upstairs, downstairs apartments at UW, because he's going to UW at the time. And so the place he moves into, it's like we have 2 rooms. There's 4 other rooms, 6 total rooms, and we have no idea who the other roommates are, you know?
And y'all share like a kitchen and communal space?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly like that. So I move in there. It's like the homie Fozzica, GQ. There's like an old man. This man's like 50, 60 Russian dude. He just stays in his room. We're like up partying till like 3 a.m. Coolest roommate I ever had to date. Like never complained, never told the landlord or anything on us, you know, was mad cool. But one of my roommates was this guy named Marty who just had long blonde hair. I would just party and kick it with him. He would go to sleep to death metal. I'm like, yo, this guy is wild, you know? And back then, Marty used to drink back then. He stopped drinking, he sobered up and whatnot, but he was a wild boy. Boy, jump out the window of the party onto a bush or something, just cause. I don't know what we were on back then. I can't tell you, dog. We were literally just wild boys. And like me and my bro, we had a duo together. And we were just rapping and throwing parties out of the apartment through the yoga pants party and stuff. That's what I said. Like my music didn't match my like mission and what it is now, but I was just finding myself. And so eventually got kicked out that spot for being wild. And Marty hits me. He's like, yo, bro, my band's jamming over here at Dante's. Like, you should pull up. I'm like, what? You're in a band, bro? I didn't even know. Like, he's like, yeah, I play the saxophone. I'm like, are you serious, dog? And so I pulled up on the jam and I had like 5 or 6 raps. I was like, okay, I think this might translate well to like a live band feel. And I just pulled up. It was the band, same band I rock with, man. We minus a drummer. It was a different drummer, but 4 out of the 5 instrumentalists were there that night. I met him at Dante's. I rapped. Everybody was like, yo, that was sick. Like that. And we had so much fun. I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to take this path that I was on that doesn't really match my mission statement,
right?
And apply it to live instrumentation, because that allows my message to be heard by everybody. It allows my message to be consumed from like ages 5 to like 85, you know?
Right.
Actually, I used to say 85. And then one time this old lady came up, she's like, I'm 95. What about me? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, so 9 to
Gotta
95.
expand that real
Exactly.
quick.
9 to
Yeah.
95 is
Yup.
the, or 5 to 95 is the demographic for what we have going on. But yeah, that's how I met the band. I was already roommates with the dude for a whole year. I had no idea. He was just my
Wow.
friend.
Crazy how things come together.
So
huh?
wow.
The
So
That's
universe,
wow.
cool
man.
though. So before that, were you just like rapping on instrumentals, like, you know,
Yeah.
YouTube beats or, you know, type beats? Or
Yeah,
whatever?
pretty much. I was recording at this place called Purple Door, which was pretty sick. Like
Right.
it had a lot of one of my homegirls, she was an intern for Macklemore. Shout out Marsha. And she was like, my homie Seth, he does production in the Purple Door. Like, it's a pretty good studio. I'm gonna try to get you in. So yeah, I just like pulled up, paid my like, I don't know, whatever it was, 50 an hour that I made from Lil Kickers. And that was my first experience being around the Seattle music scene. Like during that time, Nacho was super big, and I would see
Yeah.
him in the studio. I'm like, oh, there's Nacho Picasso. Like, dang, like this is really the spot to be. I remember Dave B was in there throwing
Mhm.
parties. I remember I met Jake One for the first time. The Physics,
Legendary,
you know,
man.
like,
Yeah.
and I was just meeting all these cats, and they were just like, "What's up?" You know, they were all people were cool or something, but they were worried about me or you know
Mhm.
thinking nothing really of me. They're like, "Oh, just another rapper in here, paying his dues." And so
Yeah.
that was like really the time I started. And then at the same time, I'm over here intern at Cube 93. So I had a chance to like interview 2 Chainz.
Oh,
I had
wow.
I had a chance to like, I seen Trey Songz, like I met Rita Ora. Like I started seeing how like teams and posses move, and I'm in promotion. So every event we pull up, I have to set up a tent. I got to take pictures. I got to like poster and flyer around. So like I'm starting to like acquire all these skills at the same time of like getting introduced into the scene on my
Mhm.
own. So my 2 worlds kind of started converging. But yeah, I dropped a mixtape that was under Marshall Hugh, and then I dropped an album that was called Mill Creek. It was like me in front of the Mill Creek sign with the sign of my own that said like "Will Rap for Love." And I actually had my own beats on that one. My boy Slim Pickens, who was another intern at Cube 93, he gave me like he'd been making beats out of like we illegally published a bunch of stuff that was sampled. It's off the internet now, so you know I got away with it type vibes. But yeah, he like gave me like the 100 beats he had made because he's like, I've been making beats for years. I just don't even know what to do with them. Like here they are.
Right.
And so I made like a 15-track album. And I did like the release show at like the Laser Dome or whatever, and I
Yeah.
had them set my Mill Creek album to the Laser Dome.
Oh,
And
that's
I
dope.
started making some waves, you know, like the city
Yeah.
was being like, okay, this guy's coming different. He's like, he's
Yeah.
unique and his ideas are bigger. But then at the same time, right, I left that other spot. I met the band and I realized this is what I want to do. And I kind of just chilled out for like a year and a half. I read a bunch of books and just studied this thing called the hero's journey, which is basically like a story archetype that's like the same as Harry Potter, or Jesus, or Gilgamesh, or Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's just talking about leaving your hometown, gaining a bunch of knowledge, going through trials and tribulations, bringing that knowledge back to your hometown, and that ultimate boon, that truth, is now like teaches your hometown the same lessons that you learned on your trials and tribulations. So I was just reading book after book after book. I read the Odyssey, I read Ulysses. Like I was really in the trenches, just reading as much as possible, watching as many movies as possible, and writing song after song. And then that's how we came out as Martial Law Band. We did this thing called the Hip Opera, where all of the songs that I made correlated with a different stage of the hero's journey. And then we acted it out, had like 20 different Seattle
Wow.
musicians acted it out. And that's how we like came into the scene as Martial Law Band in 2018. People are just like, dang, this guy came from the laser show, gone for a year and a half, came back with the opera. I've always been on some different stuff, you know.
That's what's up. You pulled up
Yeah.
with the band, man.
Pulled up with the band. People are like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
Marshall, like I see you,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel blessed, man. I mean, also my musicians are just so dope.
Yeah.
They're really good.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them in your band too. And the thing that sticks out to me the most about your band is what you mentioned, the creativity behind the process and the performance that you put on to these shows. I went to Funksgiving during Thanksgiving last
Oh
year.
yeah, you went to the one.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my first time actually seeing you perform live. And before the show, I remember you were giving out burgers, I think.
Yeah,
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 giving out
cheeseburgers.
sliders, and you were just handing them out to the crowd, and it felt like a vibe, man. And so, the one thing I noticed too is you also dress up, and you mentioned this in other interviews too, but like almost like the '70s style. And you mentioned that this was illustrative of like the injustices and the challenges of that period and how we're seeing it today. And so, I want to dive deeper into like the ethos behind the brand, like. Is it really like, I guess from your point of view, is it to bring up these topics in conversation through your music and perform it out loud, or how would you like to explain what the band's purpose is for those who don't know?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just capturing the zeitgeist, the moment of the time of which we live in, and speaking and embodying those bigger themes within our music, right? So we've always talked about social justice, and with my pops being from South Central LA and like his family being heavily involved in the civil rights movement and being around for the Watts riot, that was something that was always like ingrained in me. And then, you know, just trying to like spread love and unite people. I think that really comes from like my mom and the way that she views the world. And so those two things have always existed within me. And I like looking at those two moments, but updating them to right now, presently,
Right.
2022, and then having my lyrics, my appearance, my energy capture the zeitgeist of the moment. And I also do like going retro themes because I feel like people really express themselves. You know, they weren't afraid
Right.
to express themselves. And I think that's what I want to stand for. It's like whoever you are in that present moment, because we all change. We shouldn't be stagnant. We shouldn't be the same. It's okay to feel one way and then 3 years later feel something different. But I also think it's best when you authentically present who you are in the current moment to the world. And I like to do that with like my speech, my music, my outfits, and anything I do creatively. I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
but
that's exactly it. And I want to piggyback off of that. And I want to talk about like the experiences that you had with doing the TEDx talk and how that came about, because you've gone through, you know, doing the hip hop opera to doing the Funksgiving to doing like these other like big, you know, like nationwide, like I guess platforms and these types of events. How did that transition happen for the band, and who reached out to who?
Yeah, specifically for the TED Talk, that one was wild because it was a DM.
Oh, really?
They DM me. I'm like, oh, this is some fake stuff. You know, I didn't even just ignored it. They followed up. They're like, hey, if you don't respond, we were thinking we'll ask Sir Mix-a-Lot. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. No, Mix is the OG. Like, respected Mix did a show with them. But come on, you got to send that look to me. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they DM'd me. And that was a really grueling. That's when you start seeing that there are actual, like, production levels, intensity levels. And the higher and higher you go, the more and more you need to be on top of every facet of your life, even. Because it, like, for example, the TED Talk thing, we were having weekly Zoom meetings like 4 months out.
Wow.
And there it's like pre-production. Hey, what are you thinking? This, and that, you know, what are you trying to say? I had to submit a script originally, but you know, like, that's where I like to, like, I go back to that state championship experience. I like to say, you know what? I know what they're trying to do here. Watch me come even harder. I'll go, instead of me sending them a script, I'll record myself doing the speech already memorized. Send that to them. They're like, oh my gosh, we've never seen someone so prepared before. Like, this is wild. And I'm like, yeah, because now when you walk in these spaces, you're going to see a Black man that broke every type of projected stereotype you thought you had. I was the most prepared person you have seen out of anybody. So now when the next person gets that opportunity and that look, they're going to come to them with that type of respect off the rip. Because when I got that chance to kick that door down, because these moments mean something to me, you know?
Yeah.
They're not people, you can look around, there's not people like me that stand for what I stand for getting these opportunities, especially in this city. So I know that if I come correct and I knock these doors down, I'm going to create that opportunity for 3-4 more people that look like me, but maybe don't come from Mill Creek, don't come from the type of background and support that I have with my family and my loved ones and my friend group. But because they see me do it, and a lot of people, especially in hip hop, we got competitive edge. Anybody who sees me on a TED Talk or sees me on BBC World Service, I bet you there's 50 other rappers like, man, that should have been me. Why this guy? Well, now that door is open. Now that's not something that's impossible. Now that's not something that's only reserved for the Sir Mix-a-Lots or the Macklemores of the world. The Marshall Hughes came in here and knocked that thing down. Marshall Laban came in here and knocked that thing down. And now everybody can go crazy. Because if we can do it, I was just in Purple Door getting Lil Bro. You know?
That's beautiful, bro. You're really kicking down doors and really making a way for people, you know, from the city and, you know, people from your background. So that's amazing, man. And I want to talk about your experience at CHAZ, CHOP, whatever you want to call it, man. In Capitol Hill 2 years ago, a lot went down there, and Marshall Law Band was there. You know, y'all were present. Y'all had a huge presence. What was it like? What was your experience?
Man, that's a very formative experience. It's something, like I mentioned, like my family has always been involved in the civil rights. So it's in a lot of ways, it wasn't as much of a shock to me because I'd studied the Watts riots and the Watts Renaissance that came after that. And my dad had always told me, like, yo, the Watts riots was going on. My mom put us all on the floor and there were bullets going through our window. And then once that the community stopped and everything came together, we were more empowered and united for that moment than ever. And so I remember when George Floyd got murdered, I was just in shock like everybody else. And I went to a couple protests where I was just walking with the people and, you know, yelling is not really for me, you know, like that's not how I best like display my frustrations with things. And I get really exhausted. It like drains me. So after going to like the first 2-3 days of the protest, like I was just drained. I was exhausted and I didn't really see much of a way to like sustain that for my life. And so I kind of went quiet for like 1 or 2 days, and I wasn't really posting on social media or anything about it. A lot of my day one homies, like I remember my friend Paris Wilson, who I went to O'Day with, that's always been like a guy who's like, man, Marshall, toughen up, you know, like, come on, bro, like, don't move out his way, you know, like, you walk straight. You like, he really brought, like, I feel like a South End and CD like perspective to me coming from Mill Creek and going to O'Day and getting that melting pot. And, you know, he probably hadn't hit me 2-3 years. He's like, bro, like, we need you to say something like right now, like, I'm looking to you for like some sort of guidance. And that really like shook me. I'm like, I don't know what to say here. This is uncharted territories. I was just at the protest. Like, I'm really not the bullhorn front lines type guy. And I started doing some soul searching. I started looking around and I was like, we need to bring the band out here. Like, our music is about this stuff. And so we communicated. There's a group called On the Block right now that's every second Saturday. They are like kind of recreating that space and what we did. So the main blockade was on 11th and Pine. And then over here on 11th and Pike in this little spot, a block away, that's where we set up our stage, rented a stage, went and bought a generator with like the last $1,000 we had in our band fund. And we would just pull up, we'd sing our songs, we'd recharge people. After 4 or 5 songs, we'd stop and give people water and food. And we'd tell them to like go into the crowd and like maybe relieve somebody, get somebody off their feet. And like, we created this recharge station to create some sustainability. And so when we were first out there, it wasn't like it was some sort of peaceful spot. Like, it was basically a war zone. They had tanks out there, like people are getting pepper sprayed and we just wouldn't move. And that would just encourage other people to keep coming and to stay. And the type of connectivity we had with the support staff was there, you know, there's the protesters. Yes, there's the police right here clashing at the barricade, but there's a bunch of people coming out there for like the bike brigades out there. There's people with food. There's people with saline. There's people that are, you know, I kind of put out the call. I'm like, yo, artists, like graffiti artists, skateboarders, everybody, like, just come down here. Like, whatever your thing is, whatever your talent is, just come down here and feel the energy and have it feed off of each other. Like, we could have never really predicted on those first 2-3 days that we're out there, like, okay, it's about to turn into some sort of like autonomous zone or
Yeah.
occupied protest. That really wasn't our specific goal or intention. We didn't have like a specific goal or intention. We were there to like provide some sort of recharge station and sustainability to this intense moment. And yeah, that's what we did. And that was wild, you know?
Yeah.
That was really, that's what 12th and Pine's all about. And that's kind of how we were able to take a breath and decompress from such like a traumatic like experience, you know? I don't even rock with fireworks no more. Like, they really
that
not,
was a crazy
Yeah,
really
time,
not cool to me, you know?
And
Yeah.
y'all, there's an article out there that talks about how y'all kept playing music while there was rubber bullets being shot at the people, at the protesters, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like when that was happening from your perspective?
Honestly, I've always been that friend that's like, the revolution's coming, like, yo, the revolution. So when
Yeah.
it was there, I'm telling y'all, like, mentally, I was like prepared to pay whatever price needed. And it was sick too. My mom hit me. She's like, yo, I got bail money for you and the boys. Like,
Moms
you
was
know,
with it.
yeah,
Let's go.
yeah. And, you know, my posse actually came, and this is during COVID, you know, like, especially older people, a lot of people were rattled to be out there, let alone, you know, be out there with rubber bullets and all that stuff. And I remember there was a time when the car like swerved into the protest and shot Dan Gregory, who's featured on the Hometown Hero number 6 on 12th and Pine. And like everyone was frozen. And my dad looked at me like, hey, get on the stage, next play, like, you know, like direct traffic, like let people know. I'm like, hey, everybody calm down. Like, this is what happens at protests, like get somewhere safe. And then next thing you know, like the police are coming around, flanking from the side with the ambulance. Like, I'm communicating with the police chief via the microphone, like, hey, get the ambulance in here, somebody's shot. He's like, we're not going in there unless the ambulance people can be police escorted. I'm like, you're not going in there police escort, because this is about to turn into a whole situation. Y'all have just been tear gassing and beating us for 4 or 5 days. Like, we're not going to be in close proximity with people that have been treating us like that right now. So like, I had to be on the mic in the middle of basically a panic situation and be like negotiating how to get this person medical care and how to get this car that we don't know does it have a bomb in it? Are there more shooters? Is this an orchestrated attack? And this is real life, you know, nothing that I have prior experience of, but more instinctual experience that roots back to whether it be my basketball intensity or my father or my friends group, making sure I'm educated in the cyclicalness of history, and to know that these moments aren't something that is unique to me. They've happened since the beginning of time, and I got to stay calm enough and operate enough to be a leader in the midst of chaos.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's one of those things where you don't know you have that in you until you really do it. But it took all those little small steps of Paris hitting me, or me going out to the protest myself, or making the decision to be music, to be mentally prepared for a moment like that. And it just got kind of got wilder and wilder, and we just stood for something, you know? It was just like, yo, I'm not about to move. Whatever happens to me up here, everybody else is taking this same stance. Like, whatever happens to us, but we're about to stand up for all of us right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy, man, because it's almost like, you know, hearing your story, what you just shared, it's almost like you were built for this moment. You know, you shared about how in 8th grade in high school, you were that guy that people looked at, you know, say a speech, you know, do something. They looked at you. And then you found this passion for music, and that kind of, you know, came together into this moment here in, you know, the chop zone. And you stood up, like you said, in a moment when the people needed you the most. You were there and you were present, and you did your thing, man. So shout out to you.
Yeah,
For
thank you.
How long were you
Stressful.
and the band out there for?
So we ended up playing like, I think something like 9 times in 14 days or something of that nature. But we played 6 straight days back to back to back to back to back to back to back. And like, it was a very tumultuous time. And there's a lot of feelings about it, you know, especially in the moment. A lot of people didn't understand how music and protest go hand in hand. A lot of people don't get like, okay, throughout the history of time, music has always been a part of protest. Maybe not exactly front lines like that, but if you look at the Million Man March, I mean, God, they had programming. They had people come and play music for the people. So I was asking other musicians like, yo, I need some help down here. I need some vocal rest. We're playing like 4 hours a night. And so J-Mo the Bird was out there carrying a load. P.O. Box was out there carrying a load with me. I Am Shamel pulled up, was putting on, and Maya Marie came out and played. My boy Chris King like stepped up for me. And like one time I needed a break, like he went and performed, and then people were on him like, why is this white guy performing at this, you know? And it's like, because I literally asked him to, because we're providing a recharging service that helps fuel the greater ecosystem that's going on here, right? But there's so many different complexities involved in the conversation that a lot of people I admired, because, you know, like I wasn't Teddy talking back then, you know, like I'm looking up to people in the scene, like if I could only have this person's support, then maybe this dream could work out. And then the people I'm like looking for their support, they're on the internet just bashing me, you know? And that's when I woke up like, dog, I don't need nobody. I know I need my heart. I need my moral compass and to do it with a passion and a fervor that whether I admire you musically or I look up to you, like you can do, and I'm going to continue to do that. You can do what you do, but nothing's going to stop me from being that person that was called and built for this moment so uniquely, because it'd be doing a disservice to everyone who built me up to be the person that I am, to be ready for this moment, if I just folded because somebody I admired said something about me on the internet.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm not going to lie, those moments cut me deep to where I was like, man, my mentors can still be my mentors without me always having their approval. In fact, the fact that we clashed in that moment has brought me closer with a lot of these people that I admired that nobody was paying any attention to me before. And then now we were able to sit, have conversations. They had some time to process it. I had times to process it. Didn't do everything perfect. I mean, the first night that we were out there, I was kind of playing it like a gig. Then I seen it got more and more responsibility, more and more intense. And then so we started, like I said, taking breaks, sending people in, helping flank, because there was this barricade, but there's also another barricade. And so if numbers were looking thin up there, I'd be like, hey, we need numbers. And people would literally sprint, leave the stage, go and like protect and flank our backside so we couldn't get sideswiped by the police. And then, you know, we'd open up the stage to have other people come and speak, and people that maybe didn't feel comfortable speaking with a bullhorn in the middle, they have a stage, they have a microphone, they have a place for them to come in and do what they love. So yeah, man, it's one of these things where it made me grow up fast.
Right.
Made me grow up fast.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing about the pushback that you got from certain people and clashing with your mentors too, because that goes back to what you were talking about with the hero's journey. You know, you were staying committed. I love the book, The Alchemist.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Kind of falls in the archetype,
Absolutely.
right? And man, for me, it's like, you know, you're going through all these trials and tribulations. You think you're almost there, and then you get hit with pushback. But those times when you meet the most challenges, when you grow the most. And I think that was highlighted in those moments that you saw there. So that's really powerful. And I think a lot of our listeners can learn from that. But I want to talk about your album, man. I want to talk about that 12th and Pine, because y'all were nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for that. And for people that aren't aware what a Pulitzer Prize is, man, it's a big award in the art community, right? And I think the only other hip hop album to have won that award was Kendrick Lamar's Damn. At the time when y'all were nominated. I don't know if anybody has won since then.
No one else got it. I mean, so we were under consideration, which means like basically this is another thing that like there is a lack of information and access that makes platforms like Pulitzer or Grammys or whatever seem unattainable and inaccessible. When in reality, a lot of these things are application based. So that's every person that you see that's won a Pulitzer Prize, they applied for a Pulitzer Prize. You do have to go through an application, and it has to be approved to be under consideration for it, right? And so this is where I'm so tapped into this stuff. I know like, okay, to get a Pulitzer Prize, you have to apply. And so for us to apply and be under consideration and accepted through that process, that was like a huge win, because I literally asked myself, wait, how did Kendrick get this Pulitzer? Like, I know these people aren't listening to Kendrick stuff. I Googled like how to do it. They're like, yo, it's for $125 right here. You can apply to have your art considered to be a Pulitzer. And that's the type of information that I feel like, especially the entertainment industry or people that make it or get to certain positions, I could sit up here and like keep that veil up. But what does Pulitzer's veil do for me?
Right.
I want to see other people. I want my friends to go and apply for Pulitzers and be under consideration and be able to leverage that into TED Talks, into BBC World Series. So for us, it was like, okay, no one else in the world went and played 6 straight days in the middle of a protest, saw people got shot, tear gas, rubber bullet, all this wild stuff, and then went and compressed that experience into an album that accurately depicted from our perspective what occurred in a piece of history, and then took that album and dropped it as a comic book, a documentary, and a bunch of fire music videos. If this ain't a Pulitzer album, if this shouldn't be considered, then what should be? What should be? And so having that type of access to information, having the veil pulled off of my own eyes, I know how all these industry things work. I know it's an email away. I know it's an application away. I know it's not like something that's unattainable. And to have the follow through and the $125 and the ability to type well enough, yeah, we made that play. And yeah, I'm gonna keep applying until we win one. Cause I feel like we got robbed, man. I slept like a baby the night before. I slept like a baby the night before. I'm like, oh, there's no way we don't bring this home. They ended up giving it to somebody who didn't even have words in their music. I'm like, oh yeah, see this thing.
It wasn't, it was just like instrumental.
Yeah, I don't know how that represents the zeitgeist.
The Pulitzer winner was just an instrumental.
They dropped the beat.
Yeah, they dropped it. Hey, the beats were hard though.
It's a dub for you guys though, man.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's politics involved. It's a lot of, like, you said, those curtains that are put up, but man, it's an honor that you guys were even, that you went through that process and that you're shedding more light on it too.
Yeah.
And I want to just highlight again, like the creativity and like the performative nature of your band. I mean, there's no other band that I know that are making graphic novels.
Hey, this is hard too. This is my boy Pierre. He's a French dude who lives in Tacoma. Black French dude, man. He's so cool to work with. I gave him the vision and wow.
And look at you, man. Like you're right there, the second block of the comic and it just goes through. I think the storyline here is, behind the reason why you needed to go out and perform during this period of time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, super creative, man. I don't see any other band doing this.
Bro, you're a whole superhero.
Yeah, I put it on me chest and stuff.
Look at this, the magic microphone too.
Hey, that's filthy.
You know, and that's Baser right there, who's on Cube 93, and or I guess I think they shut down Cube 93, which is ridiculous. But she's on Converge and a bunch of other media platforms, and that was before I ever got a chance to meet her. I'm like, yo, throw her in the comic book, because one day she's about to be playing our stuff, and that moment actually came true. So this was actually just like
and this was her, you're saying?
Yeah,
right here?
This is her. And I sent Pierre a picture of her and everything. Was like, yo, this is the radio host that's like doing it big in the city and like putting on for Black artists. Like, make sure you include her in this.
That's what's up.
Yeah. That's what's up, man.
That's
so
cool,
yeah,
man.
props to you, man. Props to you.
And so last year, you actually kicked off something brand new, Fremont Fridays at LTD Bar and Grill down in Fremont, man. Tell us more about that.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you already know by now, y'all know I'm long-winded, so I got to go way back. I got to tell you the story.
Beginning. Let's go.
So look at this. After Chop and 12th and Pine dropped, again, I'm like, working hard. I had a mission, and 12th and Pine gave me direction. Promoting it gave me direction. That's when we like, okay, how are we going to get the word out about it? We can't do performances because of COVID. And I was like, literally like, yo, we should just do pop-up performances. The band was like, no, bro, that's like logistically, it's not going to work. I'm like, well, what if I got a parade float? They're like, boy, you're not going to get a parade float. And then I hit Fremont Art Council. They're like, yeah. I was like, do you guys have an extra like parade float? They're like, we actually might, Huh. And so we went, we fixed it up. They sold it to me for $1, and we drove around the city on the back of a parade float towed by my drummer's truck. And we just rode around promoting 12th and Pine, like playing for people that were just in their apartments, on the street, there was COVID, so not a lot of people were even outside. We would just like pull up to a big apartment complex and people would freak out, like show us signs. So that like really took me through, like we dropped the album in October. That probably took me through like January of just being like gassed up. Like I know my purpose, I know my mission. But as that kind of, that chapter came to a close, I was left like really looking at myself and the place in history that we now have been a part of. And I'm like, I started to feel like, what do they call it? Imposter syndrome, you know? I'm like, bro, am I really like this leader? Like, yeah, I risked my life and did all this wild stuff. Yeah, I turned around and did this, but like, is that just something I was doing because it was like Black people involved and because that's a cause that I'm willing to die for? Or I'm like, am I consistently this person? Like, is this the new standard in my life?
Right.
And I was kind of like going through it, like, am I that? Am I not? How do I feel? Where do I go from here? And I was actually down in Los Angeles. And this is why I'm so blessed to have the type of support system that I do and the type of friends in my circle. Basically, there's a guy named Torrin Frost, who's one of the best freestylers ever. He was at the Funksgiving, the guy who jumped up and freestyled in front of everybody. Like, he didn't even know he was freestyling that night. I just literally seen him in the crowd, and I was like, I know that you are built for this moment and how much this moment would mean to you. So come up here. So anyway, I go to hang out with this guy. He's like, yeah, I'm staying at in this commune in Topanga, which is like in the hills over by Malibu and stuff. I'm like, oh, bro, I don't know what you want. You feel me? He's like, yeah, meet me over here. I go over. He's like, all right, meet me at this beach. So I like see him at this private beach. He comes down with like a speaker and a microphone and like puts it towards the ocean. And him and I are just like freestyling to the ocean for like 2 hours. I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
I'm like, this guy must be in a filthy commune. Like, I don't know what type of commune he's on, but like, he's moving so different. Like, his energy is so different. And it started to feel like super refreshing. Like, I could start to feel like that vigor, like get back into my life. So we go up this windy hill. He takes me up to Topanga. I kid you not. I pull up like the woman who is the head of the commune. She's like teaching a fencing lesson in the parking lot of the high hills. I'm like, bro, Torrin, where do you got me? He takes me into like this organic farm, 40-acre organic farm. And like, they have this floating bed that apparently him and like a couple other women like would sleep on at night underneath this oak tree. And basically he tells me, he's like, Marshall, I wanted to bring you here so you could join a cult. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's like, bro, I want to take you here because there's this land defense movement that's going on in Superior, Arizona at the Oak Flats. And I've been sleeping underneath this oak tree and something is really calling me to go out there and be a part of this land defense movement. And I wanted to ask you if you would come with me. And I'm like, bro, like, okay, you know, like, this is a moment that I feel like called to be a part of this quest. So I hit up my boy Murph, who I went to school with for 2 years. And I know he's like adventurous and stuff. I pull up on him like, yo, there's this land defense movement going on. Do you want to come? He's like, I'm at his house. He like pulls out a gas mask. He's like, oh, should I bring this? Like, I'm like
he was ready.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, like I'm with the right squad, you know? Like, I don't know, maybe just pack it. I don't know. I thought we were going to be like linking arms or something because like, basically they're building a mine on sacred Apache land where they would go and have their annual ceremonies in this spot. And then not only is the mine going to make it so the ceremonies are disrupted, but it's also going to affect the water quality and it's going to put copper into the streams. And so this is like something that not Torrin felt very passionately about, but I myself feel passionately about respecting the indigenous people and their cultures and their traditions because they've been here on this land the longest. They really know how to not only live off the land, but also to honor the land. And so I was like, all right, so we drove for 7 hours. We're making songs on the way over there about like, they put copper in the water. They put metal in the streams. Got it in my veins, feeling like I'm Wolverine. You know, like we're making music off of this. Just like, okay, we can't wait. When we pull up, we see this giant, like they have these huge fires, like 20 feet tall fires. And women who had just come of age, they're like dancing around the fires all night. And so like we pull up, it's like a campground type situation. And like, I probably would have been cool because it was me and I'm brown, you know, a person of color, but I'm like with 2 white dudes, you know? So like immediately we're wondering like, should we be here? Are we intruding? Is it okay to make art about this space and what's going on here? And so we kind of just observed and we went to sleep, and then we woke up. We're like, we need to go on like a hike or something and go and figure out like, what's our purpose? Why are we here? And we didn't want to like make more work for people. I think that was something big that I learned at CHOP and whatnot. It's like me, I was so exhausted. I'd have so many people hitting me like, Marshall, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I'm like, bro, just come out here. What do you mean? What can I do? Like, figure out what to do. Like, I'm already doing my own stuff. Like, so I really didn't want to make work for these people. So we went on this hike. These boys were crazy. My boy Torrin, no shoes on, no shoe Magoo, in the desert, hiking, jumping from rocks to rock. They're free climbing stuff. I'm like, this is not my vibe. I got my Yeezys on. I'm like, this is not my vibe, you know? And they're like doing things where like, we're free crawling. So if I were to slip and fall, like I could bash my head out here. I started thinking of like, damn, like I'm really risking my life out here with these blokes. And then we climb up something, and then it was only like a 2-foot gap, but it's like jumping from rock to rock. It's like, dang, I can always clear 2 feet, but what if I slipped or something? If I go down, like they're going to be like, Marshall Hugh dies on a vision quest. You know, I'm like, oh my God, no, not me. So I just started doing it. Not thinking twice about it. Just like, yo, I'm just going to do it. And so we're doing it. We like slide into this bluff that's like almost like a mini Grand Canyon. And I don't know what inspired me to do it. I just started screaming into the abyss, just and then Torrin and Murphy are just joining me. We're just screaming into the abyss, and it felt like so therapeutic. And I kid y'all not, I wasn't even on no drugs or nothing. This wind just starts like pushing us and feeling it. And we're just screaming into the abyss, and I just felt so alive. I'm like, oh my, like we just got like the earth just talked to us, like we're in the right place, like we're following what earth and the spirit that I follow is where I'm in the place. Like I could feel it. But then we're like, wait, but what does that mean? You know, we still didn't find a way to like really properly be a part of what was going on. So we're going back down. We're like, you know what? We're just going to walk to the mine. And we're just going to go straight to the mine. And like, we were walking. We were low-key running out of water. We're like, oh, this is maybe not the best idea, you know? And then Torrin looked on the ground and he saw a piece of trash. He was like, yo, we should pick this up. He's like, wait, we should pick all this up. And that was it. We went back to the campsite. We got 2 giant bags of garbage each, and we cleaned up the whole campsite for these people. Right. And people were coming up to us like, yo, this is one of the nicest things we've ever seen anybody do. Like, what are y'all doing? We're like, yo, we're outsiders out here. We didn't want to make more work for you, but we wanted to show you that we appreciate you as people, your traditions, and we acknowledge the land defense struggle that you're going with, and we want to like make art about that if that's okay. They're like, oh, the elder's right there in the tent. You could have just gone and talked to this.
You could have saved all this time.
Like, literally, you didn't need to do all that. And it was just like, and so we went and sat with him.
Right.
And that's how I told you. This is all to tell you about Fremont Fridays.
Right.
Yeah. So we go to sit with him, and basically what he said is a lot of like experts and white people were coming up like, this is how you, this is my white voice. Hey, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, you don't talk like that. Anyway, that's my environmental scientist voice.
There you go.
Yeah, like you should, you got to file this paperwork. You got to do this. You got to do that. And none of those strategies were working. And so what they did is they did a recommitment to the traditions that they had of old. So they ran a lit fire, mile by mile relay all the way across Arizona back to the oat flax to light the big flames that we saw. And inexplicably, like 2 weeks later after them doing that, the environmental impact statement in like an unprecedented event got rescinded, and they got like 120-day extension on the mine not being able to drill.
Oh, wow.
And so what he attributed that to was their protest is in their process and in their practices. And he said, I remember like yesterday, he's like, our goal is to change the hearts and the minds of our oppressors through our process. And And that was like the light. That was like the moment I was screaming into the abyss for. That was the direction that my soul needed after CHOP and after 12th and Pine, to where I was like, no, I'm really about this. Like, I'll go climb and risk my life in some Yeezys to scream into the abyss, to gain knowledge from different cultures, to be able to bring back to my own hometown and share with my friends. And so I was like, all right, instead of me just pulling up on protests, I'm going to create my own protest that embodies the values that I care the most about, and try to change the hearts and the minds of the people that may not understand why we were protesting in the beginning. And so that's what Fremont Fridays is. It's really a protest, but it's music, it's community, it's highlighting mostly BIPOC vendors, and it's breaking the mold of this cookie cutter Seattle nightlife that keeps being forced upon us. And it's saying, no, we're going to show up. Hip hop music is valued here. Local music is valued here. And expression and love and community is here. And that's what Fremont Fridays is. I hollered at mediums. They're like, bro, you're crazy. Like, like, let's do it. You know, that's how I love those blokes, because they're like as crazy as me, you know, like all I got to tell them is the plan. And they're like, okay, like, we'll be there. We'll be there. And so that's how Fremont Friday started. And after it being so successful last year, and after the type of impact it had, we're like, we got to do it again. And last year we got 15 straight Fridays of sun. To start off Fremont Fridays. These first 2 weeks have been rainy. But it like tested, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm crazy now. Like, I live for the test. I live for like the adrenaline rush of like, are you really who you say you are? Are you going to rise to this occasion? So yeah, it was like mid set. It started pouring rain. I'm up there climbing up the parade float. It's called the SS Jelly Bean. We're like climbing it up. I got a tarp. Like, we're like pushing together. People are like scrambling to move tents. And we like all like in a community style, like just like protected us from the rain. And last week we were ready for it. It looks better and better. You know what I'm saying? Fingers crossed type vibes. But yeah, we literally weathered the storm, and like, bro, we really want this. And our protest is in our practice now. And that's the vision, man.
That's awesome, man. And it's a great vibe out there. I can vouch for it myself. Went to 2 events last year, and man, we had a great time out there, bro. Beautiful venue too. It's outside, and you can go inside too, because it's right next to a bar. But
yeah, shout out LTD. Man. That's another, the owner, Jack, same thing. Like, I pulled up on him fresh after the Vision Quest, like frothing at the mouth. I was telling him like, bro, I just climbed Superior, Arizona, Oak Flats, like screaming to the abyss. He's like, I'm like, and so we're going to pull the jelly bean up in the parking lot and throw a party. He's like, But credit to him, you know, like he's like, all right, like, with your crazy ass, Marshall, bring it.
Yeah, that's dope. Y'all are coming hard this year, man. So looking forward to Fremont Fridays this year. You got anything else going on?
Yeah, I mean, it was a blessing to, because I felt like Fremont Friday, that was like my next chapter. And then I kind of started feeling like that a little bit again. See, that's the thing. Right. I'm worried about my life, you know. I can't tell what other type of wild stuff.
You gotta write a book, man. I know, write a book.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be a graphic novel too.
Yeah, and then you'll win the Pulitzer on that.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm telling you, I'm coming for Pulitzer. I swear. And like that's the thing. I did research on Joseph Pulitzer. Like, he was the most me type of dude ever. Like, he would run his own like he would run for office and then run his own campaigns in his paper and stuff. And like, he was the first one to like make 3D printing. So like, I really felt like we embodied the spirit of Joseph. Anyway, Pulitzer, we coming for you, buddy. We coming for you, man. I'm gonna give me one. But yeah, so I was feeling like that again.
Yeah.
And then another thing, like, so BBC International News is like this huge platform, probably the biggest in the world.
Right.
And they just emailed us one day. They're like, yo, like, we heard that you did this in Seattle. We're going to a stateside tour of New York, Seattle, and LA. We'd really love to feature you on the panel and have the band perform. I'm like, let's go, you know? Yeah. And so they came to Seattle. We held it down. And then subsequently, we went out to Europe. And so now we met with them out there. And they said out of everybody, I swear, they said out of everybody from New York to Seattle, to LA, that internationally the most people hit them about Martial Law Band.
Wow.
And like some of these other people, they're like, you know, they're dope too, without a doubt. They got Grammys. Some of them probably got Pulitzers, you know. Yeah. But our story resonates internationally, and what we're trying to accomplish resonates internationally. And so the next quest, the next vision is when the man's name's Mugabe, who's the producer of this Arts Hour. He was telling us, he was like, I really believe Martial Law Band could be an international band of love. And y'all need to connect with these other artists that have a similar mission, not just regionally, but internationally. And then show that if you can create without borders and be like standing in your truth and in your gaps internationally, why couldn't we do that? We live right next to you. I'd walked here.
Yes,
Right.
sir.
You know, we should be good.
Yeah.
If I can do that with somebody in Zimbabwe or Russia, then that's what this next project is going to stand for. So in September, October-ish, I'll be going out there to London again as like my hub, my base. It's 8 hours ahead, so it's really hard to communicate internationally with people. So we're finishing up tracking our next album. That's going to be like an international album of love, and we're going to connect with those artists and build that intergalactical, hopefully, bridge that just stands for connecting without borders and really like taking our next step in our chapter. And that's what's next.
That's
Let's
beautiful.
go, man.
Yeah,
Make
come
your
on.
moves, man.
Come on, baby.
We'll be rooting for you, bro.
Going
Going global, man.
Yeah,
Going
I'm telling
global.
you. Next up, I'm trying to play on Mars, man.
There you go. We'll hook
Let's
it up
get
with Elon too, man.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Marshall, for coming
Yeah.
through.
Thank you
man,
for
and-
having me. Y'all, I'm
and sharing your
telling
message.
y'all are professional. You're clean. I seen the notes. I'm like, oh dang, these boys, you're scrolling on the notes. I'm like, okay, so no, respect to y'all.
Thank you,
I
bro.
really see the necessity for high quality media in our region, and the fact that y'all are stepping up to fill that and do it with such a passion and take the time to research like that. This is big time, fellas. So yeah, y'all got a supporter in me, and maybe you'll do this at Fremont Fridays, or let's figure something out. You know,
Hell
however.
yeah.
Let's do it, bro.
Let's
I
do it,
appreciate
man.
it. Means a lot.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode, guys. And if you want to catch more, we have episodes dropping every Wednesday. And thank you again to Marshall for joining us on this episode. Please like, subscribe, comment what episodes you guys want to see next, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Peace.